a moment with nature. A brief time with a mind fascinated by the natural world. I've got a brief patch of shocking blue sky at the moment, and I'm standing watching an ash tree. No leaves, of course, it's far too early in the year, but it's a big ash tree, and just watching the way its branches move in the air. And you can see so clearly the pattern, the way the branches go up, or the trunk goes up and then splits into smaller branches, then smaller branches. And right at the tip, it's like, and this is a bit of a cliche, I do know, but it really is like the tips of the tree are painting the sky. And there's some wispy clouds each side, very high clouds, rather streaky clouds, which means changeable weather is on the way, but we've known that. We've been living in changeable weather for the last couple of weeks or so. But I just love watching the trees. They bend and they're flexible, and that's part of their strength, because if they didn't bend, they just crack and blow over. Oh, you can hear that. That's a puff of wind. And that same puff of wind is getting the tops of those trees to move back really quite a large distance. I can't see any birds in there at the moment, but it's another ability I really admire of birds, to be able to sit in the branches and just hang on for dear life as their perch is rocked backwards and forwards. They seem completely comfortable with it. It's quite an impressive skill. They're natural acrobats. That's a great tit. It just flew across the path, sat in a tree, and started calling, "Chew, chew, chew, chew." Very smart looking birds, great tits. I've come outside after yet another heavy shower has been through. It's January the 8th, and we've had rain after rain after rain over the last couple of weeks, and it's seriously wet. You can possibly hear there's a stream running in the background, and as I walk over the ground here, like this, you can definitely hear a good bit of sogginess going on, and that was ground only in August that was absolutely baked hard. So our countryside has been transformed from arid, dry, caked mud to a very wet, very soggy environment. But this wasn't the only thing that's happened this winter. At the beginning of December, there was a very, very cold period, lasted quite a few days, and I know it got down to at least -8 degrees where we are, quite possibly colder. And there was no snow, so any plant that was around at that time would have experienced the full force of the frost, because snow often protects plants if it's lying. And I'm just standing now over a couple of really rather intriguing looking plants. One of them is a Michaelmas daisy. It's a rosette of leaves against the ground, and the other one right next door to it is a creeping thistle. Now, the Michaelmas daisy looks absolutely fine. It's not growing very much. It's the middle of winter. You wouldn't expect it to, but it looks absolutely fine. But the thistle, wow, that's brown, very, very dead. And that happened when the frost came. And there are a few other plants like that around the place. Lots and lots of thistles have been killed. There have been lots of nettles, but the brambles seem to be fine, and the grass is fine, and there are some reeds down by the water that seem fine, and some ferns are fine, and other ferns that are, well, completely gone. And it's very clear that some plants are adapted well to very cold weather or surviving cold periods, and other plants just give up. And there's a lot of different things that go into that, because the thistle, the creeping thistle, has actually got lots of roots underground, full of nutrients and full of food, ready to go as soon as the spring comes. And as many farmers and many gardeners know, they will creep and be a major weed. But they don't like heavy frost. The Michaelmas daisies, on the other hand, have adapted to heavy frost, and they've almost certainly adapted in a way that many other plants have adapted. They've developed antifreeze. Water is a really weird material. It's essential for life, but it's one of the very, very few liquids that actually expands as it freezes rather than getting smaller as it freezes, which means that water crystals, as they form, can be really powerfully pushing out on whatever they are on the inside of. They can break rocks. You get water going down to cracks, you get freezing, the water expands, and it can break rocks, and is one of the major causes of weathering. But it also, if it freezes inside a plant cells, they will expand and rupture those plant cells and cause a great deal of damage, kill the cells effectively. So there are many plants that evolved antifreeze that disrupt the growth of ice crystals. And if the ice crystals, even if it gets down to -10, 15, -20, can't form, then they can't expand, and while the cells won't be doing very much at that temperature, they haven't been broken open and haven't been killed. And so, looking around me now, I can see there's some dock leaves that have survived. There is plenty of grass that survived. There's some buttercup that survived. There's a whole range of different plants that are just sitting there quietly benefiting from the fact that they have some form of antifreeze in their cells that has stopped them from dying in the heavy, heavy frost. Obviously, there are temperatures we go down to that will kill everything, the -70s, -80s, -90s you get in the Arctic and the Antarctic. But on the whole, in this country, there are many plants that are adapted well, just with enough antifreeze to prevent them dying when the heavy frosts come. And the heavy frosts are even important, because there are many seeds that need a cold period in order to germinate. It's a process called cold stratification, and one of my favourite plants that we will certainly talk about later in the year, yellow rattle, actually needs a cold period before its seeds will germinate. So if you have some and want to germinate them successfully, you may well end up having to put them in the freezer for a bit. The music was Nature Walk by Alexi and downloaded from Pixabay. Everything else was done by me, Toby Murcott.